I now pronounce you husband and wife. Those were the words I dreamed of hearing my entire life. As I looked into Ryan's eyes during our first kiss as a married couple, everything felt perfect. Until 6 months later, when I discovered the man I'd married wasn't the man I'd fallen in love with. My husband's identical twin had orchestrated the most elaborate deception I could have ever imagined. And the worst part? My real husband knew about it from day one. Stay with me, and I'll tell you how I lived 3 years of my marriage with a complete stranger, how 2 narcissistic brothers used me as a prize in their twisted competition, and how I finally learned that sometimes the person who claims to love you the most is the one destroying you from the inside. Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Rodriguez, and I'm 27 years old living in Austin, Texas. This story still makes me question everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and my own intuition. But I need to share it because when I was frantically Googling married to wrong person identity theft at 3 a.m. in my empty apartment, I couldn't find anyone who had been through what I experienced. If you're questioning your reality, dealing with gaslighting, or wondering if you're losing your mind in your relationship, maybe my story will help you trust your instincts and understand that you're not crazy. They really are that manipulative. Let me take you back to September 2019, my senior year at University of Texas. I was 21, focused on finishing my psychology degree, and honestly, I wasn't looking for love. I'd had my share of disappointing relationships and was perfectly content being single. That's when I met him. It was a rainy Tuesday, and I was rushing across campus to my cognitive psychology class when I literally ran into this guy coming out of the library. Books went flying everywhere, and I was mortified. But instead of being annoyed, he just started laughing. This genuine, warm laugh that made my embarrassment melt away. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, scrambling to pick up my scattered notes. "Don't be," he said, helping me gather everything. "I was actually hoping for an excuse to procrastinate on my thesis. You just gave me the perfect one." When I looked up, I saw the most beautiful green eyes I'd ever seen. He had dark brown hair that was slightly messy, a small scar on his left eyebrow that gave him this rugged look, and when he smiled, there was this tiny gap between his front teeth that was absolutely adorable. "I'm Ethan," he said, extending his hand. "Maya," I replied, and when our hands touched, I swear I felt electricity. "Maya," he repeated, like he was testing how it sounded. Beautiful name for a beautiful girl. I rolled my eyes, and that's probably the oldest line in the book. "Probably," he grinned, "but it worked, didn't it? You're still talking to me." And that was it. That was the moment I fell for Ethan Morrison. Our first date was that Friday at a little coffee shop near campus called The Grind. I remember everything about it. I wore my favorite yellow sundress. He showed up with a single sunflower because he said it reminded me of my smile, and we talked for 4 hours straight. Ethan was majoring in business with a focus on sustainable energy. He told me about his dreams of starting his own renewable energy company, how he wanted to make a difference in fighting climate change. He listened intently when I talked about my plans to become a therapist specializing in family counseling. "I love that you want to help people," he said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "There's something so pure about wanting to heal families. I bet you're going to be amazing at it." The way he looked at me when he said that, like he was the most fascinating person he'd ever met, I'd never felt anything like it. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and I were inseparable. He'd walk me to all my classes, even if it meant he'd be late to his own. He'd bring me coffee every morning, always a vanilla latte with an extra shot, exactly how I liked it. He remembered every little detail I told him. When I mentioned I loved sunsets, he surprised me with the picnic on the campus hill just as the sun was setting. When I missed my grandmother's homemade cookies, he spent an entire weekend learning her recipe from my mom over FaceTime. When I was stressed about my thesis, he showed up with my favorite takeout and offered to proofread everything. "You don't have to do all this," I told him one evening as we studied together in the library. "I don't have to," he said, looking up from his textbook. "I want to. Maya, I've never felt this way about anyone before. You make me want to be the best version of myself." He was romantic in the most thoughtful ways. He'd leave little notes in my textbooks that I'd find later. He'd text me good morning every single day before I even woke up. On our 2-month anniversary, he took me to the botanical gardens because he knew I loved flowers, and we spent the entire afternoon just walking and talking. But it wasn't just the grand gestures, it was the little things. The way he'd absently play with my hair when we were watching movies, how he'd always walk on the side closest to traffic, the way he'd look at me sometimes like he couldn't quite believe I was real. Ethan told me about his family, how he had an identical twin brother named Ryan who lived in Dallas, working for some tech startup. He said they weren't particularly close anymore. "We used to be inseparable as kids," he explained one night as we lay on his dorm room bed, my head on his chest. "But as we got older, we became really different people. Ryan's always been more competitive, I guess. He always had to have what I had, be better at what I was good at. It got exhausting." "That must have been hard," I said, tracing circles on his chest with my finger. "It was, especially because he was always the favorite. Our parents thought his ambition was admirable, but they saw me as the dreamer. It caused a lot of resentment between us." I could hear the pain in his voice. "When's the last time you talked to him?" "Months ago. We had a big fight about some business idea I had. He basically told me I'd never amount to anything." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes I think he resents that I'm happy, like he can't stand that I found something good, someone good, without fighting for it." I lifted my head to look at him. Well, his loss is my gain. Ethan smiled and pulled me up for a kiss. "I love you, Maya Rodriguez." It was the first time either of us had said it, and my heart nearly exploded with happiness. "I love you too, Ethan Morrison." Those were the most perfect 8 months of my life. Ethan and I did everything together. We studied together, explored Austin together, planned our future together. He'd already started talking about marriage, not in a pushy way, but in that dreamy way couples do when they're completely in sync.
"I can see it," he'd say as we walked through the park on Sunday mornings. "Little house with a big backyard, maybe a dog, kids running around, you coming home from work telling me about the families you helped that day. And you coming home telling me about the latest solar panel innovation," I'd laugh. "Exactly. We'll be that couple that still holds hands when we're 80. I believed every word. How could I not? Ethan was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. He was kind, ambitious, supportive, and he loved me in a way that felt both passionate and stable. My friends adored him, my parents loved him when they visited, and my little sister Emma would always gush about how perfect we were together. But then something started to change, and I should have paid attention to the signs. It started small. Ethan began seeming distracted during our conversations. He'd check his phone more often, sometimes stepping away to take calls. When I'd ask who it was, he'd just say, "Family stuff," and change the subject. Then he started canceling dates. Not often, and always with reasonable excuses. Family emergency, had to work late on his thesis, wasn't feeling well. But it was enough that I noticed. The biggest red flag should have been when he started asking weird questions about my future plans. Instead of the dreamy conversations about our life together, he'd ask more practical things. "So, after graduation, you're definitely planning to stay in Austin for grad school?" he asked one evening in March. "That's the plan," I said, "unless something changes." "Why?" "Just making sure we're on the same page about everything." "Ethan, is everything okay? You've seemed different lately." He pulled me close and kissed the top of my head. "Everything's perfect, Maya. I'm just stressed about graduation, making sure I have everything figured out." I accepted that explanation because I wanted to. because the alternative, that something was wrong with us, was too scary to consider. Our last real date was in April, about a month before graduation. Ethan took me to the same coffee shop where we'd had our first date, and for a moment it felt like old times. He was attentive and sweet, asking about my thesis defense, making me laugh with stories about his roommate's latest dating disasters. "Maya," he said as we were getting ready to leave, taking my hands across the table, "I want you to know that meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. You changed my life." "You changed mine too," I said, squeezing his hands. "No matter what happens, I need you to remember that. What we had was real. What I felt for you was real." At the time, I thought he was just being romantic. And now I know he was saying goodbye. The next week, Ethan started pulling away completely. He'd barely respond to my texts, and when he did, they were short and distant. When I tried to make plans, he always had an excuse. I started to panic. "Are you breaking up with me?" I finally asked him directly when I cornered him after his economics final. "No," he said, but he wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "I just have a lot going on right now. Family stuff, job applications. You know how it is." "Then let me help. Let me be there for you." "Maya, I need some space to figure things out just until after graduation, okay? Then we can talk about everything." My heart was breaking, but I nodded. "Okay, if that's what you need." He kissed me then, soft and sad, and whispered, "I'm sorry." I didn't see him again until graduation day. May 15th, 2020. Graduation day. Despite everything that had been weird between us, I was still excited to see Ethan walk across that stage. I had been giving him the space he asked for, but I assumed after graduation we'd figure things out. I was sitting with my parents and Emma in the family section when I spotted him in the graduate lineup. Even from a distance, something seemed different. His hair was styled differently, more formal, more controlled. And when he walked across the stage to receive his diploma, there was something about his posture, his stride, that seemed off. But I chalked it up to the formality of the occasion and my own anxiety about our relationship. After the ceremony, I waited for him by the fountain where we'd agreed to meet. My family had gone to get the car, and I was standing there in my cap and gown, clutching the congratulations card I'd written him. When I saw him walking towards me, my heart leaped. He looked so handsome in his cap and gown, and for a moment, everything felt normal again. "Congratulations, graduate," I said with a big smile as he approached. But instead of the warm hug I expected, he just smiled politely and said, "Thank you, Maya." Something in his voice made me freeze. It was Ethan's voice, but there was something different about the cadence, the tone. More formal, less warm. "Ethan, are you okay?" I asked, studying his face. "I'm great, Maya." And when he smiled, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The little gap between his front teeth, the one that I'd always found so endearing, was gone. "Ethan," I said slowly, "did you get dental work done?" He touched his teeth self-consciously. "Oh, that. Yeah, I got it fixed a few weeks ago. Figured it was time to look more professional, you know?" It was a reasonable explanation, but something deep in my gut was screaming that this was wrong. Everything about him felt wrong. The way he stood, the way he looked at me, even the way he smelled was different. "Maya, we need to talk," he said, and my heart sank. "Okay," I whispered. "I've been doing a lot of thinking during these past few weeks, and I think we want different things. I got a job offer in Dallas, and I'm going to take it. I think it's time we both moved on."
I stared at him in shock. Moved on? Ethan, what are you talking about? A month ago, you were talking about our future together. People change, Maya. Priorities change. I'm sorry. The way he said it, so cold, so matter of fact, it was like being slapped. This wasn't the gentle, empathetic man I'd fallen in love with. This person felt like a stranger. I don't understand, I said, tears starting to form in my eyes. Did I do something wrong? Can we at least talk about this? There's nothing to talk about. I'm sorry if I led you to believe there was more of a future here than there actually was. Led me to believe? He told me he loved me. He talked about marriage and kids and growing old together. How was that leading me to believe something that wasn't real? Ethan, please, I said, reaching for his hand. This isn't you. Something's wrong. Talk to me. He pulled his hand away. This is me, Maya. Maybe you just never really knew me as well as you thought you did. And with that, he walked away, leaving me standing by the fountain in my graduation gown, crying and completely confused about what had just happened. That night, I called Emma, sobbing. He just ended it, I cried into the phone. Out of nowhere. And Emma, something was so wrong. He didn't seem like himself at all. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Men are they get scared of commitment sometimes. Maybe he just panicked about the future. No, you don't understand. It wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it. It was like he was a completely different person. Maybe graduation stress just brought out a different side of him. I wanted to believe that explanation, but every instinct I had was telling me something else was going on. For the next few weeks, I tried to contact Ethan. I called, texted, even showed up at his dorm, but he was already gone. His roommate said he'd moved out the day after graduation and hadn't left a forwarding address. I started graduate school that fall, feeling like I was living in a fog. I couldn't understand what had happened. How could someone go from talking about forever to walking away without a second thought? How could someone change so completely? My friends tried to be supportive, but their explanations all felt hollow. He wasn't worth it anyway. You're better off without him. He showed his true colors. But none of that felt right. The Ethan I'd known for 8 months wasn't capable of that kind of cruelty. Something had happened. Something had changed, and I couldn't let it go. The next 2 years were challenging, but transformative. I threw myself into my graduate studies in clinical psychology, determined to become the best therapist I could be. I went to counseling myself to try to understand what had happened and how to move forward. My therapist, Dr. Williams, helped me work through a lot of the pain and confusion. Sometimes, she said during one of our sessions in early 2021, people show us who they really are when the pressure gets high. Graduation, entering the real world, those are big life changes. Some people handle them with grace, others reveal character flaws that were always there. But it felt so sudden, I insisted, like overnight he became a different person. That's probably because you were seeing him through the lens of love and hope. When someone disappoints us that dramatically, it can feel like they changed, when really they just stopped pretending to be someone they weren't. I accepted that explanation because I had to. I needed to move on, to heal, to open my heart to the possibility of love again. By my second year of grad school in 2022, I was doing much better. I was 23, completing my clinical hours, and had even started dating again. Nothing serious, but I was putting myself out there. I had a good group of friends, my grades were excellent, and I felt like I was finally starting to rebuild my life. That's when Ryan Morrison reached out to me on social media. It was October 2022, and I was in my final year of graduate school when I received a simple message. Hi, Maya. This might seem random, but I'm Ethan's twin brother. I know things ended badly between you two, and I wanted to reach out to apologize on behalf of my family. Would you be open to meeting for coffee sometime? I think there are some things you deserve to know. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. I'd worked so hard to move past what happened with Ethan. But another part of me was curious. What could Ryan possibly tell me that I didn't already know? After talking it over with Dr. Williams, I decided to meet him. We met at a Starbucks in downtown Austin on a Saturday afternoon. I got there first and was nervously sipping a latte when I saw him walk in. My heart nearly stopped. He looked exactly like Ethan. Exactly. Same height, same build, same dark brown hair and green eyes. But when he smiled and waved at me, I noticed something that made my chest tighten. He had a small gap between his front teeth. Maya, he said as he approached my table. I'm Ryan. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet me. I shook his outstretched hand, trying to process what I was seeing. You look just like him.
Ryan laughed, and the sound was so familiar it made my heart ache. Yeah, we get that a lot. Can I get you another coffee? I'm fine, thanks. He ordered himself a black coffee and sat down across from me. I know this must be weird for you. A little, I admitted. Your message said there were things I deserve to know? Ryan's expression grew serious. Maya, I need to ask you something first, and I want you to be completely honest with me. When you were dating Ethan, did he ever seem different to you? Like, maybe he wasn't being completely himself. The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? I mean, did he ever seem like he was putting on an act, or maybe like he was trying too hard to be someone he wasn't? I thought about it. Not really. I mean, everyone puts their best foot forward when they're dating, right? But no, he seemed genuine. Why? Ryan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that was painfully familiar. This is going to sound crazy, but I don't think the person you dated was always my brother. I'm sorry, what? Maya, I think Ethan and I switched places sometimes. I think I was pretending to be him, and he was pretending to be me. I stared at him in complete shock. That's impossible. Is it? Think about it. Did he ever seem different day to day? Like maybe more romantic one day, more distant the next? My mind started racing. There had been times when Ethan seemed different. More thoughtful some days, more distracted others. Times when he'd forget things he should have remembered, or remember things differently than I did. Even if that were true, I said slowly, why would you do something like that? Ryan looked down at his coffee. Because I was in love with you. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Maya, I saw you around campus before Ethan ever met you. I had a huge crush on you, but I was too shy to approach you. When Ethan told me he'd met this amazing girl named Maya Rodriguez, I knew it had to be you, and I was devastated. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even breathe. So when he started complaining about how clingy you were getting, how serious things were becoming, I suggested we switch places occasionally, just to give him a break. Clingy. The word came out as a whisper. That's what he called it. Said you were talking about the future too much, putting too much pressure on him. He liked you, but he wasn't ready for anything serious. I felt like I was going to be sick. So the romantic dates, the thoughtful gestures, the talks about our future. A lot of that was me, Ryan said quietly. Maya, I fell in love with you the first time I pretended to be him. The way you lit up when you talked about your dreams, how kind you were, how smart and funny, I couldn't help myself. Tears were streaming down my face now. How often? What? How often were you pretending to be him? Ryan looked ashamed. More and more toward the end. Ethan was getting tired of the whole thing. He started asking me to cover for him more often. That's why he seemed distant in those last few weeks. He was trying to figure out how to break up with you without looking like the bad guy. And graduation day? That was him. He insisted on ending it himself, said it was his responsibility. I put my head in my hands. Everything I thought I knew about my relationship with Ethan was a lie. The man I'd fallen in love with, the one who brought me sunflowers and learned my grandmother's cookie recipe and talked about growing old together, that had been Ryan. Maya, I'm so sorry, Ryan said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. I know this is horrible. I know what we did was unforgivable, but I needed you to know the truth. I pulled my hand away. Why? Why tell me this now? Because I can't stop thinking about you. Because what I felt for you was real, even if the circumstances weren't. Because I hoped maybe we could start over, do things right this time. I looked up at him, this man who looked exactly like the person who'd broken my heart, and felt a confusing mix of anger, betrayal, and something else I didn't want to acknowledge. You're insane if you think I'd ever trust you again. Maya, please, let me prove to you that what I felt was real. Let me show you who I really am. I don't know who you are really. I don't know who either of you are. You both lied to me for months. You both manipulated me. You used me as some kind of pawn in whatever twisted game you were playing. It wasn't a game to me, Ryan said desperately. Maya, I love you. I've loved you since the first time I saw you across that campus. Everything I said to you, everything I felt, that was real. But I was already walking away, leaving him sitting alone at that table, just like his brother had left me standing alone by the fountain. For weeks after that coffee meeting, Ryan wouldn't leave me alone. He called, texted, sent flowers to my apartment. He showed up at my grad school classes, at my favorite coffee shop, at the grocery store I frequented. At first, I was furious. I blocked his number, returned his flowers, and told him in no uncertain terms to leave me alone. But Ryan was persistent in a way that Ethan never had been. Where Ethan had given up easily, Ryan fought for me. He left handwritten letters under my apartment door. Long, detailed explanations of everything that had happened, apologies that seemed genuine, and declarations of love that were both heartbreaking and infuriating. In one letter, he wrote, Maya, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. What Ethan and I did was inexcusable, but I need you to understand that every moment I spent with you as myself was the most honest I've ever been in my life. When I held your hand, when I kissed you, when I told you I loved you, that wasn't pretend. That was the realest thing I've ever experienced. Another letter said, I've spent my whole life competing with Ethan, trying to be better than him, trying to prove I was worth as much as he was. But with you, I didn't want to compete. I just wanted to love you. I wanted to be the man you deserved, even if I had to pretend to be someone else to get the chance. The letters were working, even though I didn't want them to. Against my better judgment, I found myself looking forward to finding them. Ryan's writing revealed a depth of feeling that I'd never seen in the Ethan I thought I knew. He also started showing up everywhere I went, not in a stalkerish way, but in a way that seems coincidental until it clearly wasn't. Maya, he'd say, acting surprised to see me at the library. What a coincidence. Ryan, this isn't a coincidence. This is the 4th time this week I've ran into you. Okay, you got me, he'd admit with that sheepish smile. I may have asked around about your schedule, but can you blame me? You won't return my calls. Despite myself, I was charmed by his persistence.
There was something different about Ryan's pursuit of me compared to how Ethan had been. Ethan had been smooth, effortless, like dating me was easy for him. Ryan seemed to be fighting for every interaction, putting real effort into winning me over. One evening in November 2022, I was leaving my evening class when I found Ryan waiting by my car. "Before you say anything," he said quickly, holding up his hands, "I know this looks bad, but I brought you something." He held out a sunflower, just like the one Ethan had brought me on our first date. "Really?" I said. "You're going to use the same moves your brother used?" "No," Ryan said seriously. "I'm using the moves I used. Maya, that first date, the picnic during the sunset, learning your grandmother's cookie recipe, that was me. I was the one pretending to be Ethan that day." My heart stopped. "What?" "Our first date was me. The picnic during the sunset was me. Learning your grandmother's cookie recipe was me. Most of the romantic gestures you remember, those were me being myself, just pretending to be him." I stared at him, trying to process this information. "How am I supposed to believe anything you say?" "Because I can prove it," he said. "Ask me about that night. Ask me what we talked about, what you wore, what you ordered. Ask me about the sunset picnic, what I brought, what we talked about, how you fell asleep with your head on my shoulder while we were looking at the stars." I didn't want to ask because I was afraid of what the answers would mean, but I couldn't help myself. "The first date. What did I order?" "Vanilla latte with an extra shot and a blueberry muffin, but you were too nervous to eat the muffin, so you just picked at it while we talked." "What did we talk about?" "Everything. Your family, your dreams of being a therapist, your grandmother who raised you after your parents died. You told me about how you wanted to specialize in family counseling because you believed everyone deserved a chance to heal their relationships. I told you about my business dreams, about wanting to make a difference in renewable energy. Every detail was correct, painfully, perfectly correct." "The sunset picnic," I whispered. "I brought sandwiches from that deli you liked, the one near campus with the good turkey clubs. You wore that yellow sundress again because you said it made you feel pretty. We talked about our fears. You said you were afraid of not being good enough, of letting people down. I said I was afraid of living in my brother's shadow forever." Tears were starting to form in my eyes. These weren't just surface details. These were intimate moments, private moments that I treasured. "You fell asleep during the meteor shower," Ryan continued softly. "I didn't want to wake you up because you looked so peaceful. I just sat there holding you and thinking that I could do that forever." "Stop," I whispered. "Maya, I know this is confusing and horrible and unfair, but those moments we shared, those conversations, those feelings, they were real. I was being myself with you. I was just doing it while pretending to be someone else." I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I tried to separate Ryan from Ethan in my mind. The gap in his teeth that I found so charming, the way he stood with his hands in his pockets when he was nervous, the way he looked at me like I was something precious. "If all of that was you," I said slowly, "then what was Ethan doing during those times?" His expression darkened. "Living his life, dating other people. He was seeing someone pretty seriously, actually, a girl named Jessica from his economics class." The betrayal hit me fresh. Not only had I been deceived, but the person I thought loved me had been cheating on me the entire time. "Maya, please," Ryan said, stepping closer. "I know I don't deserve another chance. I know what we did was terrible, but what I felt for you was real. What we had together was real. And I think I think you felt it too. I had felt it. Looking back, I could see the difference between the days when I was with Ryan versus the days when I was with Ethan. With Ryan, everything felt more intense, more connected. With Ethan, things felt more surface level, like he was going through the motions.
I can't, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Can't what? I can't trust you. I can't trust my own judgment. How do I know you're not just manipulating me again? Ryan reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. Because this time, I'm going to prove everything I'm telling you. He showed me his phone screen, a text conversation between him and someone named Ethan. Ryan. I told her the truth. Ethan. You're an idiot. She's gonna hate both of us now. Ryan. She deserves to know. Ethan. Whatever. Just leave me out of it. Ryan. Don't you feel guilty at all? Ethan. About what? We gave her a good 8 months. She should be grateful. Reading those texts made me sick. The casual cruelty in Ethan's words, the complete lack of empathy for what they'd put me through. He really doesn't care, does he? I said quietly. No, he doesn't. He never did. Maya, that's the difference between us. Ethan saw you as a conquest, something to win and then get bored with. I saw you as everything. I looked up at him. This man who shared a face with the person who'd broken my heart, but whose eyes held a warmth that Ethan's never had. What do you want from me, Ryan? A chance, he said simply. A real chance to show you who I am when I'm not pretending to be someone else. A chance to love you the way you deserve to be loved. I stood there in that parking lot, holding the sunflower, trying to make sense of everything I'd learned. The logical part of my brain was screaming that this was insane, that I'd be crazy to trust either of the Morrison twins ever again. But my heart remembered those perfect moments, the conversations that went deep into the night, the way it felt to be truly understood by someone, the feeling of being loved completely and unconditionally. And if those moments had been with Ryan, not Ethan, one date, I said finally. What? One date. As yourself, not pretending to be anyone else, you get one chance to show me who Ryan Morrison really is. The smile that broke across his face was brighter than any I'd ever seen from Ethan. Thank you, he whispered. Maya, thank you. I promise you won't regret this. But as I drove home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I already did. Our first official date as Ryan and Maya was nothing like my dates with Ethan had been. Ryan picked me up at my apartment on a Friday evening in early December 2022, and he was visibly nervous in a way that Ethan never had been. I made reservations at Antonio's, he said as he held the car door open for me. But if you don't like Italian, we can go somewhere else. Or if you'd prefer something more casual, we could do that too. I just thought, Ryan, I interrupted gently, Antonio's is perfect. He looked relieved. Okay, good. I just want tonight to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, I said as he got in the car. It just has to be honest. The drive to the restaurant was filled with nervous small talk, both of us trying to navigate this weird situation we'd found ourselves in. How do you go on a first date with someone you've technically already been intimate with, but also barely know? At dinner, Ryan was completely different from the smooth, confident person I'd known as Ethan.
He was more awkward, more earnest, more human. "I have to confess something," he said as we waited for our appetizers. "I've been planning this conversation in my head for weeks, and now I can't remember a single thing I wanted to say." I laughed. "That's okay. We can just talk naturally." "Right. Natural. I can do natural." He took a sip of water. "Except this isn't natural at all, is it? This whole situation is completely insane." "A little," I agreed. "But insane doesn't necessarily mean bad." He looked at me hopefully. "No? No. Ryan, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When you were pretending to be Ethan, were you ever yourself? Or were you always acting?" He thought about it for a moment, absently fidgeting with his napkin. "That's the thing, Maya. When I was with you, I wasn't acting at all. I was being more myself than I'd ever been in my life. The only thing that was fake was my name." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Ethan and we're not as similar as people think. Yeah, we look identical, but our personalities are completely different. Ethan is confident, charming, smooth with people. He's always known exactly what to say and when to say it. I'm not like that." "You seemed confident when we were together." Ryan shook his head. "That was you. Being with you made me feel confident. You made me feel like the best version of myself, like the person I always wanted to be, but never thought I could be." Our appetizer arrived, and we both picked at it nervously. "Tell me about the real Ryan Morrison, not Ethan's twin, not the person pretending to be someone else. Who are you?"
He was quiet for so long, I wondered if he was going to answer. Finally, he said, "I'm the guy who's been in love with you for 2.5 years and spent every day of those years hating himself for it." The raw honesty in his voice made my chest tight. "I'm the guy who memorized your class schedule, not to stalk you, but just so I could accidentally walk by and see you smile at your friends. I'm the guy who knew your favorite coffee order before I ever pretended to be Ethan, because I'd been watching you at the grind for months, wishing I had the courage to approach you. Ryan, I'm the guy who wrote you 17 different love letters before I ever sent that first message. I'm the guy who knows you bite your lip when you're concentrating, because I've watched you study from across the library more times than I can count. I'm the guy who fell in love with your laugh before I ever heard you say my name." Tears were forming in my eyes. "Why didn't you just approach me yourself? Why the charade?" "Because I was a coward," he said simply. "Because Ethan was always the one girls wanted. He was always more charming, more confident, more everything. I figured you'd never look twice at me if you could have him instead." "But I didn't want him," I said quietly. "I wanted the person who brought me sunflowers and learned my grandmother's recipes and talked to me about my dreams. I wanted the person who made me feel seen and understood and cherished. If that person was you..." "It was me," Ryan said urgently, leaning across the table. "Maya, it was me. Every moment that mattered, every conversation that went deep, every time you felt truly connected to someone, that was me." I believed him. Looking into his eyes now, I could see the difference. Where Ethan's eyes had always held a certain distance, a coolness, Ryan's eyes were warm and vulnerable and completely open. "What about Ethan?" I asked. "When was he pretending to be himself?" Ryan's expression darkened. "The surface stuff, mostly.
The casual conversations, the physical intimacy when it didn't mean anything deep, toward the end when he was getting tired of the whole thing and wanted out. Physical intimacy when it didn't mean anything deep. The words hit me like a slap. "Ryan," I said slowly, when Ethan and I were intimate, that was him," Ryan said quickly, understanding what I was asking. "Maya, I wouldn't have done that to you under false pretenses. That I wouldn't cross." I felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. Relief that Ryan hadn't violated my consent in that way, but disappointment because it meant those intimate moments hadn't been with the person I was actually connecting to emotionally. So the person I made love to was someone who didn't actually care about me. I said, more to myself than to him. "Maya, don't think about it that way, please." "How should I think about it?"
Ryan reached across the table and took my hand. "Think about it like this. The person who held you afterward, who whispered that he loved you, who made you feel safe and cherished, that was me. I was always there for the moments that mattered." We finished dinner in relative quiet, both of us lost in our own thoughts. As Ryan drove me home, I found myself studying his profile, trying to reconcile this gentle, vulnerable man with the confident person I thought I'd been dating. "Maya," he said as he walked me to my apartment door, "I know this is all overwhelming. I know you need time to process everything, but I need you to know that I meant what I said earlier. I've been in love with you for 2.5 years. Not infatuated, not obsessed. In love. The real, deep, want to build a life with you kind of love." I looked at him, this man who'd been living in his brother's shadow, who'd been too afraid to approach me as himself, who'd orchestrated an elaborate deception just to spend time with me. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you decide if you can forgive me, if you can trust me, if you think there's a chance for us to build something real together. And if I can't?" Pain flashed across his face. "Then I'll respect that. I'll leave you alone and I'll live with the knowledge that I had a chance to love the most amazing woman I've ever met. And I ruined it by being a coward." I stood there on my doorstep, key in my hand, looking at Ryan Morrison and trying to decide if I was brave enough to take another chance on love. "I need time," I said finally. He nodded. "I understand. Take all the time you need." "But Ryan?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for telling me the truth, finally." He smiled that shy, genuine smile that was so different from Ethan's confident grin. "Thank you for giving me the chance to tell it." Over the next few months, from December 2022 through the spring of 2023, Ryan and I began the slow, careful process of building something real together. It wasn't easy. There were layers of deception and hurt to work through, and I struggled daily with questions about my own judgment and ability to trust. But Ryan was patient in a way that Ethan never had been. When I needed space, he gave it to me without complaint. When I had questions about what had been real and what had been fake, he answered honestly, even when the truth was painful. We started with coffee dates, neutral, public places where I could leave if I felt overwhelmed. Ryan would tell me stories about his real life, his actual childhood, his genuine dreams and fears. Slowly, I began to see him as his own person, rather than as Ethan's twin.
Tell me about growing up, I said during one of our early coffee dates in January 2023. It was complicated. Being an identical twin sounds fun, but when you're the quiet one and your brother is the charming one, you kind of disappear.
What do you mean? I mean, people would meet us and immediately gravitate toward Ethan. He was funnier, more outgoing, more confident. I was just there. Even our parents treated him like the golden child. I could hear the pain in his voice. That must have been lonely. It was, especially because Ethan loved the attention. He never minded that I faded into the background. In fact, I think he preferred it. It meant he never had to share the spotlight. Is that why you went along with the switching? Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Partially. When Ethan suggested it, there was this part of me that was excited to finally be the one someone preferred, even if it meant pretending to be him. But you said you fell in love with me. How could you be happy deceiving me? I wasn't, he said firmly. Maya, every day I spent with you was torture because I wanted so badly to tell you the truth. I wanted to tell you that the person you were connecting with, the person you were falling in love with, was me. But I was terrified that if you knew, you'd choose him anyway. Why would you think that? Because everyone always chose him. Our parents, our friends, girls we went to school with. Ethan was always the more appealing option. I reached across the table and touched his hand. Ryan, look at me. He lifted his eyes to mine. I didn't fall in love with a name or a reputation or someone's social skills. I fell in love with someone who listened to me, who remembered the little things, who made me feel understood. If that person was you, then I fell in love with you. Something shifted in his expression, a hope that he'd been afraid to let himself feel. Do you really mean that? I'm trying to, I said honestly. Some days I believe it completely. Other days I wonder if I'm just projecting what I want to believe onto the situation. What can I do to help you believe it? Keep being honest. Keep being yourself. And Ryan? Yeah? Stop comparing yourself to Ethan. I'm not choosing between you and him. I'm choosing whether or not to trust you. Our coffee dates turned into dinner dates, which turned into long walks and movie nights and lazy Sunday mornings. Slowly, carefully, I began to open my heart to Ryan Morrison. He was different from Ethan in ways that became more apparent the more time we spent together. Ryan was thoughtful where Ethan had been impulsive. He was gentle where Ethan had been intense. He was vulnerable where Ethan had been guarded. I love how your mind works, he said one evening in March 2023 as we walked through the park near my apartment. We'd been officially dating for about 3 months, taking things slowly but steadily building something real. What do you mean? I mean, you think about everything so deeply. When you're trying to understand something, you don't just accept surface explanations. You dig deeper. You ask questions. You want to understand the why behind everything. Is that annoying? Are you kidding? It's one of the things I love most about you. Ethan always said you asked too many questions, that you analyzed things to death. But I love that about you. I love that you want to understand people, that you care enough to dig beneath the surface. It was comments like that that helped me see the difference between the twins. What Ethan had seen as flaws, Ryan saw as strengths. What Ethan had found tiresome, Ryan found fascinating. Ryan, I said one night in April 2023 as we sat on my couch watching a movie, can I ask you something that might be difficult? Always. Do you think Ethan ever actually cared about me? Or was I just a game to both of you? Ryan was quiet for a long time.
and I could see him choosing his words carefully. I think Ethan cared about you in the way that he's capable of caring about anyone, he said finally. But Ethan doesn't love people the way you and I understand love. He enjoys people. He's entertained by them. He likes the way they make him feel about himself. But I don't think he's capable of the kind of selfless, deep love where you genuinely care more about someone else's happiness than your own. And you think you are? He turned to look at me directly. With you, yes. Maya, your happiness matters more to me than my own. Your dreams matter more to me than mine. If loving you meant sacrificing everything else in my life, I'd do it without hesitation. The intensity in his voice should have scared me, but instead, it made me feel cherished in a way I'd never experienced before. That's a lot of pressure, I said softly. I don't mean it to be. I just mean that what I feel for you is real and deep and permanent. I'm not going to get bored with you or take you for granted or look for someone better. You're it for me, Maya. You always have been. That night, 6 months after our first official date, I finally felt ready to take the next step. When Ryan kissed me goodnight at my door, I pulled him inside. Are you sure? He whispered against my lips. I'm sure, I said. I want to be with you, Ryan. The real you.
Making love with Ryan was completely different from being intimate with Ethan. Where Ethan had been confident and somewhat detached, Ryan was reverent and completely present. He touched me like I was something precious, like he couldn't quite believe I was real. Afterward, as we lay tangled in my sheets, Ryan traced patterns on my bare shoulder. Maya, he said quietly. I need to tell you something. My heart clenched. What? I love you. Not as Ethan, not as someone pretending to be someone else. I love you as Ryan Morrison, with all my flaws and insecurities and fears. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that you can trust me. I turned in his arms to look at him. In the dim light from my bedroom window, I could see the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear that I might not say it back. I love you too, I whispered. The relief and joy that crossed his face was beautiful. Really? Really. I love you, Ryan. I love your gentleness and your thoughtfulness and the way you make me feel like the most important person in the world. I love that you were brave enough to tell me the truth, even when it might have meant losing me. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. For the first time in nearly 3 years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. In August 2023, about 8 months into our relationship, Ryan asked me to come home with him for his parents' anniversary party. I was nervous, not just about meeting his family officially as his girlfriend, but about seeing Ethan again. Are you sure you're ready for this? Ryan asked as we drove toward Dallas on a Saturday morning. Honestly, no, but I think I need to face this eventually. Ethan will be there, Ryan warned me, with Jessica. Jessica, the girl Ethan had been seeing while pretending to date me. I learned more about their relationship over the months. They'd been together on and off throughout college, and apparently she'd known about the twin switching all along. How do I act around him? I asked. However feels right to you. You don't owe him anything. Not politeness, not forgiveness, nothing. The Morrison family home was a large, traditional house in an upscale Dallas suburb. As we pulled into the driveway, I could see several cars already there. Ready? Ryan asks, squeezing my hand. Ready as I'll ever be. Ryan's parents, David and Linda Morrison, were exactly what I'd expected. Polished, successful, and clearly more impressed with Ethan than with Ryan. The difference in how they treated the twins was obvious from the moment we walked in. Ryan, Linda said, giving him a quick hug. "And you must be Maya. We've heard so much about you." But when Ethan and Jessica arrived 20 minutes later, the energy in the room completely shifted. "Ethan," David boomed, crossing the room to embrace his son. "There's my boy. How's the job going? Still on track for that promotion?" I watched this interaction with fascination and growing anger. Here were parents who clearly favored one son over the other, and it explained so much about Ryan's insecurities and Ethan's narcissism. When Ethan's eyes met mine across the room, I felt a chill run down my spine. He looked exactly like Ryan, of course, but there was something cold in his expression, something calculating. "Maya," he said, approaching me with Jessica on his arm, "it's been a while." "Ethan," I replied coolly, "I have to say, I'm surprised you're here, with Ryan." His tone was pleasant, but there was an edge to it that made Ryan tense beside me. "Why would that surprise you?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I just figured after everything that happened, you'd want to stay away from the Morrison family altogether." "Ethan," Ryan said warningly. "What?" "I'm just saying, it must be confusing dating someone who looks exactly like your ex-boyfriend." Jessica squeezed his arm. "Babe, maybe we should go get some drinks." But Ethan wasn't done. "Tell me, Maya, when you're with Ryan, do you ever close your eyes and pretend he's me?" The cruelty in his voice was breathtaking. This was the man I once thought I loved, and he was deliberately trying to hurt me. "No, Ethan," I said calmly, even though my heart was pounding. "When I'm with Ryan, I'm grateful I never have to pretend he's someone better." Ryan's hand found mine and squeezed. Ethan's smile faltered slightly. "Interesting. Well, enjoy the party." As he walked away, I felt Ryan's body relax slightly beside me. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have warned you he might do something like that." "It's okay. I handled it." But the encounter had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. Seeing Ethan again, being reminded of how manipulative and cruel he could be, made me appreciate Ryan even more. But it also made me question, once again, my own judgment. How had I ever thought I loved someone like that? The rest of the party was awkward, but manageable. I could see the family dynamics playing out. Ethan holding court, charming everyone, while Ryan stayed quietly by my side. I could see how Ryan had learned to make himself invisible, how he'd grown up believing he wasn't worth attention.
But I also saw something else. I saw how genuine Ryan was with his extended family, how kind he was to his elderly grandmother, how patiently he listened to his young cousin's stories about school. I saw the man I'd fallen in love with, and I understood that he was worth 10 of his brother. As we were getting ready to leave, Ryan's mother pulled me aside. "Maya, dear, can I speak with you for a moment?" "Of course." She led me to the kitchen, away from the crowd. "I want you to know how happy I am that Ryan found someone," she said. "He's always been our sensitive one, and honestly, we worried about him. Ethan's always been so successful with women, so confident. We weren't sure Ryan would ever find someone who appreciated his quieter qualities." I bristled at her words. "Mrs. Morrison, Ryan is an incredible man. Any woman would be lucky to have him." She looked surprised by my vehemence. "Of course, dear, I just meant, I know what you meant. And I think you're underestimating your son. Ryan is thoughtful and kind and genuine in ways that Ethan will never be. I don't need him to be more like his brother. I love him exactly as he is." Linda Morrison stared at me for a moment, then smiled. "You really do love him?" "More than anything." "Good," she said. "He deserves that." On the drive home, Ryan was quiet. "Are you okay?" I asked. I keep thinking about what my mom said to you." "What about it?" "The way she talked about me, like I'm some charity case you're taking pity on." I reached over and took his hand. "Ryan, look at me." He glanced over. "Your family doesn't see you clearly. They've been blinded by Ethan's charm for so long that they can't see what's right in front of them. But I see you. And what I see is the most amazing man I've ever met. Even after seeing us side by side today, even after seeing how different we are, especially after seeing you side by side, Ryan, watching you with your family today just confirmed what I already knew. You're nothing like him. And thank God for that." He squeezed my hand. "I love you, Maya Rodriguez." "I love you too, Ryan Morrison." But as we drove back to Austin, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The look in Ethan's eyes when he'd spoken to me, the calculated cruelty in his words, it felt like a warning, like he wasn't done playing games. I just didn't know how right I was. In February 2024, about a year and 4 months after we started officially dating, Ryan proposed. It was perfect in its simplicity. No elaborate schemes or public displays, just the two of us in the park where we'd had so many important conversations, with the ring he designed himself and words that came straight from his heart. "Maya," he said, dropping to one knee on the same hill where we'd had that first honest conversation. "I know our beginning was complicated. I know I hurt you and betrayed your trust in ways I can never fully make up for. But if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that you made the right choice in giving me a second chance." I was already crying. "You are the love of my life, my best friend, my everything. You make me want to be the best version of myself every single day. Will you marry me?" "Yes," I whispered, then louder, "Yes, of course, yes." The ring was perfect. A simple solitaire with a delicate band, elegant and timeless. Nothing flashy or ostentatious, just like Ryan himself. "I love it," I said as he slipped it onto my finger. "I love you." "I love you too," he said, kissing me. More than I ever thought it was possible to love someone. We set a date for October 2024. A small ceremony with just close family and friends. I wanted our wedding to be everything my relationship with Ryan was. Honest, intimate, and real. The engagement period was blissful. We moved in together, combining our lives in practical and beautiful ways. Ryan was finishing his MBA while I was completing my internship hours for my therapy license. We were both working toward our dreams, but we were doing it together. Ryan was an amazing partner. He cooked dinner when I had late sessions with clients. I helped him study for his comprehensive exams. We talked about everything, our fears, our hopes, our plans for the future. We were building something solid and real and beautiful, but there were still moments when the shadow of our complicated beginning would creep in. "Maya," Ryan said one evening in June 2024, as we were addressing wedding invitations, "can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I just approached you as myself from the beginning?" I set down my pen and looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you think you would have fallen in love with me if you'd met me first instead of thinking you were meeting Ethan?" It was a question I'd asked myself many times. "Ryan, why are you asking me this now?" "Because sometimes I worry that you only love me because you think I'm him, or because you're trying to recapture what you felt with him." I moved from my chair to the couch where he was sitting,
taking his hands in mine. "Ryan Morrison, listen to me very carefully. I love you. Not because of anything that happened with Ethan, not because I'm confused about who you are, but because of who you are. I love your kindness, your thoughtfulness, your terrible jokes, the way you make coffee in the morning, the way you listen when I talk about difficult clients. I love that you remember my favorite flowers and that you always let me pick the movie. I love that you're brave enough to be vulnerable with me." But what if? No what ifs, I interrupted. "Ryan, I've spent enough time with you now to know the difference between you and your brother. What I feel for you is completely separate from anything I thought I felt for him. You have to believe that." He searched my eyes. "I'm trying to." "Then try harder, because in 4 months, I'm going to marry you. And I need you to believe that I'm choosing you because you're exactly who I want to spend my life with." He kissed me then, soft and sweet and grateful. "I love you," he whispered against my lips. "I love you too. Now help me address these invitations before I get writer's cramp." We sent invitations to both of our families, including Ethan. I wasn't sure he'd come, and part of me hoped he wouldn't, but Ryan felt it was important to include him. "He's my brother," he explained. "Despite everything that happened, despite how much I disagree with his choices, he's still family." "And you're okay with him being at our wedding?" "I'm okay with it because I trust us. Maya, what Ethan thinks or does or says can't touch what we have together. He had his chance with you and he threw it away. This is our time now." 2 weeks after we sent the invitations, Ryan got a phone call from Ethan. "He wants to take me to lunch," Ryan told me after hanging up, "to talk about the wedding." "Are you going to go?" "I think I should. I'd rather clear the air before the wedding than have tension hanging over everything." I was nervous about the meeting, but I trusted Ryan to handle his brother. What I didn't expect was what Ethan would tell him. Ryan came home from lunch looking shaken. "What happened?" I asked as soon as he walked in the door. "Maya, we need to talk." My heart sank. What did he say? Ryan sat down heavily on the couch. "He told me something about the night we graduated, the night he broke up with you." "What about it?" "He said that, after he left you by the fountain, you called him, multiple times, and that you begged him to reconsider." I stared at him in shock. "That's not true." "He said you told him you loved him and that you'd wait for him to figure things out." "Ryan, that never happened. I never called him after that night. I was devastated, but I never chased after him." He seemed pretty convincing. The doubt in his voice made my blood run cold. "Are you seriously questioning me right now? You're going to take Ethan's word over mine?" "I'm not taking anyone's word over anyone else's. I'm just trying to understand what really happened." "What really happened is that your brother is a manipulative narcissist who can't stand that you're happy. He's trying to plant seeds of doubt about me because he doesn't want you to move on." "Maya, calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down. Ryan, after everything we've been through, after all the work we've done to build trust, you're going to let him get in your head like this?" "I'm just asking questions." "No, you're not just asking questions. You're doubting me. You're doubting us." I could see the conflict in his eyes, and it terrified me. This was exactly what Ethan wanted, to drive a wedge between us, to make Ryan question my feelings for him. "Ryan, look at me. Look at me and tell me you believe me." He met my eyes, but I could see the uncertainty there. "I want to believe you." "That's not the same thing." We stared at each other across the living room, and I felt like I was watching our relationship fracture in real time. "Maybe we should postpone the wedding,"
Ryan said quietly. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Just until we can work through this. Until I can be sure. Sure of what? Sure that I love you? Sure that I'm settling for you because I couldn't have him? Ryan, if you don't know the answers to those questions by now, then we have bigger problems than anything Ethan could say. I stood up abruptly. I'm going to Emma's for the night. When you decide whether you trust me, let me know. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Maya, wait! I turned back to look at him. What?
I looked down at my engagement ring, this beautiful symbol of a promise that now felt fragile and uncertain. I'm postponing it, I said, until we can both be sure we're doing this for the right reasons. The pain that crossed Ryan's face was devastating. Maya, I love you. I know I screwed up, but I love you. I love you too, but love isn't enough if we can't trust each other. I slipped the ring off my finger and placed it on the coffee table between us. I'm gonna stay at Emma's for a while. I think we both need some space to figure things out. Maya, please. Ryan, if you really love me, if you really want a future with me, then you'll do the work. You'll figure out why you were so quick to doubt me, and you'll make sure it never happens again. I stood up to leave, but he caught my hand. What if I lose you? He whispered. I looked down at him, this man who held my heart even as he was breaking it, and felt tears start to fall. Then you'll know that you threw away the best thing that ever happened to you because you couldn't believe you deserved it. And with that, I walked out of our apartment, out of our life together, not knowing if I'd ever be back. The next 6 weeks, from early August through mid-September 2024, were the hardest of my life. I threw myself into work, taking on extra clients and staying late at the office to avoid going back to Emma's place and having to talk about my feelings. But even when I was helping other people work through their relationship issues, I couldn't stop thinking about Ryan and what we'd lost. Emma tried to be supportive, but I could tell she thought I was making a mistake. He made one error of judgment, she said one evening as we ate takeout in front of the TV. One moment of doubt after his toxic brother got in his head. Is that really worth throwing away your relationship? It's not about one moment, Emma. It's about what that moment revealed. Ryan has never fully believed that I chose him. He's been waiting this whole time for me to realize I made a mistake. But you haven't realized that, have you? I set down my chopsticks and looked at her. What do you mean? I mean, are you sure you're with Ryan for the right reasons? Or are you with him because he's the idealized version of Ethan? It was the same question she'd asked before, and it still made me angry. I'm with Ryan because I love Ryan. But do you really? Or do you love the idea of him? Emma, stop. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Maya, be honest. If Ryan looked completely different, if he wasn't Ethan's identical twin, would you still be with him? The question hit me like a slap. That's a horrible thing to ask. But it's a fair question. Look, I'm not saying Ryan isn't a good guy. He seems wonderful. But your whole relationship is built on this weird foundation of deception and mistaken identity. Maybe both of you need to figure out if what you have is real or if it's just a fantasy. That night, I lay awake thinking about Emma's words. Would I have fallen for Ryan if he looked different? If I'd met him first without any connection to Ethan, would I have been attracted to him? The honest answer was, I didn't know. And that scared me more than I wanted to admit. Meanwhile, Ryan was doing exactly what I'd asked him to do. He'd started individual therapy with the counselor,
who specialized in family dynamics and self-esteem issues. He'd sent me updates every few days, not trying to win me back, but letting me know he was doing the work. "Maya," he texted one evening in mid-August, "I had a breakthrough in therapy today. I think I understand now why I was so quick to doubt you. Would you be willing to talk sometime soon?" I stared at that text for an hour before responding. "I'm not ready yet, but I'm glad you're working on yourself." "I understand. Just know that I'm not giving up on us. I love you, and I'm going to figure out how to be the man you deserve." 2 weeks later, in early September, I got an unexpected visitor at work. I was between clients when my receptionist buzzed me. "Maya, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." I walked out to the waiting room and froze. It was Ethan. "Hello, Maya. What are you doing here? We need to talk." I looked around the waiting room, conscious of my professional setting. "This is my workplace, Ethan. You can't just show up here." "5 minutes, please. It's about Ryan." Against my better judgment, I led him to my office and closed the door. "What do you want?" Ethan sat down in the chair across from my desk, looking perfectly comfortable, despite the fact that he was the last person I wanted to see. "I want to apologize." "For what?" "For interfering in your relationship, for lying about the phone calls, for trying to sabotage your engagement." I stared at him in shock. "Why would you do that?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, studying his hands. "Because I was jealous."
Jealous? You're the one who broke up with me. You're the one who didn't want commitment. I know. And I thought I was fine with that. I thought I was happy that Ryan finally had something good in his life. But then I saw you two together at my parents' anniversary party. And I saw how happy you were, how happy he was. And I realized what? That I'd made a mistake. That maybe I'd given up the best thing that ever happened to me. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Ethan, you can't be serious. I am serious, Maya. I've been thinking about you for 4 years. I've compared every woman I've been with to you. Jessica and I broke up because I couldn't stop talking about you. You broke up? 6 months ago, right around the time Ryan proposed. He looked up at me with those familiar green eyes. Maya, I think I'm in love with you. I think I always have been. The room was spinning. This couldn't be happening. Not now, not when I was already so confused about everything. You don't love me, Ethan. You love the idea of me. You love the fact that you can't have me. That's not true. Isn't it? When you had me, you threw me away. You said I was clingy, that I wanted too much, that you needed space. And now that I'm with Ryan, now that I'm happy with someone else, suddenly you decide you want me back? Ethan stood up and moved closer to my desk. Maya, I was young and stupid and scared. I didn't know how to handle what I felt for you. But I'm older now, more mature. I know what I want. And what you want is your brother's fiancé? What I want is the woman I fell in love with 4 years ago. The woman I never should have let go. I'm not your brother's fiancé anymore, I said, without thinking. Ethan's eyes lit up. You broke up? We're taking a break, working on some issues. Issues that I caused. Issues that you revealed. Ethan, Ryan has never believed that I really chose him. He's been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for me to realize I made a mistake. And maybe what? I couldn't believe I was about to say this. Maybe he was right to worry. Ethan smiled, that confident, charming smile that had once made my heart race. Maya, I know I hurt you. I know I messed up badly,
But if you give me another chance, I promise I won't make the same mistakes again. Ethan, I can't. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't do that to Ryan. You mean the brother who pretended to be me to get you to fall in love with him? The brother who built your entire relationship on a lie? That's not fair, isn't it? Maya, Ryan manipulated you just as much as I did. At least I'm being honest about my feelings now. I stood up abruptly. You need to leave. Now. Maya, please, just think about it. Think about what we could have if we did this right. There is no we, Ethan. There never was. You made sure of that. He moved toward the door but paused with his hand on the handle. I'm not giving up. I let you go once, and it was the biggest mistake of my life. I won't make it again. After he left, I sat in my office shaking. Not because I was tempted by his offer, I wasn't, but because seeing him again, talking to him, had crystallized something I'd been trying not to acknowledge. Emma was right. There was a part of me that had been with Ryan because he represented the best parts of Ethan. The romantic gestures, the deep conversations, the feeling of being truly seen and understood. Those were the things I'd fallen in love with, and they'd happened to come in Ethan's face. But were those things really Ryan? Or were they just an idealized version of what I wished Ethan could be? I needed to figure out the answer to that question before I could make any decisions about my future. That night, I called Ryan. Maya, is everything okay? Ethan came to see me today. Silence. Ryan, what did he want? To tell me he's in love with me, to ask me to give him another chance. More silence. Ryan, say something. What do you want me to say? That I'm surprised? I'm not. I've been waiting for this to happen. What do you mean? I mean, I've been waiting for him to realize what he gave up and come back for you, and I've been waiting for you to realize that he's what you really wanted all along. That's not true, isn't it? Maya, be honest. When you saw him today, didn't you feel anything? Didn't some part of you remember what it was like when you thought he loved you? I was quiet for too long. Maya, I felt confused.
Ryan, it's not what you think. I'm not leaving you for him. I wouldn't do that. You don't have to leave me for him. I'm letting you go. My heart stopped. What? Maya, I love you enough to want you to be happy. And if there's even a small part of you that wonders what if about Ethan, then we don't have what I thought we had. Ryan, please don't do this. I have to. For both of us. Maya, you deserve to be with someone you're completely sure about. And I deserve to be with someone who chooses me without any doubt or hesitation. Tears were streaming down my face. I do choose you. You choose me because I'm safe. Because I'm the version of Ethan who won't hurt you. But that's not the same as choosing me because you can't imagine your life without Ryan Morrison. The truth in his words was devastating. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry too, for not being enough, for not being him. Ryan, you are enough. You're more than enough. Maybe for someone else, but not for you. And that's okay, Maya. It hurts like hell, but it's okay. So, this is it? We're really over? Yeah, I think we are. I hung up the phone and cried until I had no tears left. I'd lost Ryan, really lost him this time. And the worst part was that he was right. I wasn't completely sure about my feelings for him. I couldn't honestly say that I loved him independent of everything that had happened with Ethan.
And that meant I'd been lying to both of us all along. 2 weeks after Ryan and I officially ended things in mid-September 2024, I found myself sitting in my therapist's office trying to make sense of the wreckage of my life. "Dr. Williams," I said during our session, "I think I've been lying to everyone, including myself." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I think Ryan was right. I think I was with him because he represented the idealized version of Ethan, not because I loved him for who he really was." Dr. Williams leaned forward slightly. "What makes you think that?" "Because when Ethan showed up at my office and told me he loved me, I didn't immediately shut him down. I didn't feel nothing. I felt something, and that scared me." "What did you feel?" "Vindicated, I think. Like, finally the man I thought I loved was admitting that I'd been worth loving all along." "And what does that tell you?" I was quiet for a long moment, really thinking about it. "It tells me that I never fully got over Ethan, that some part of me has been waiting for him to come back and validate my feelings all these years." "And Ryan?" Ryan was wonderful. He's kind and thoughtful, and he loves me in this pure, unconditional way that I've never experienced before. But I can't stop wondering if I would have fallen for him if he looked different, if he hadn't been connected to Ethan. That's a difficult question to sit with. It is, and it's not fair to him. He deserves someone who loves him completely without any reservations or doubts. What do you think you need to do? I sighed. I think I need to figure out what I really want. Not what I think I should want, not what's safe or logical, but what I actually want. And how do you plan on doing that? I think I need to see Ethan again. Really talk to him. Not just react to him showing up unexpectedly. I need to understand what he's offering and decide if it's something I want. That sounds reasonable. And what about Ryan? I think Ryan and I are done. Even if I figured out that I really did love him independent of everything that had happened with Ethan, I don't think he could ever trust that. And honestly, I don't blame him. That evening, I called Ethan. "Maya, I was hoping you'd call. Can we meet? I think we need to have a real conversation." "Of course. When and where?" "Tomorrow night. The coffee shop where we had our first date. I'll be there."
When Ethan walked in, my heart did skip a beat. I couldn't deny that. He was still the most physically attractive man I'd ever seen, and seeing him in this place where we'd first connected brought back a flood of memories. "Maya," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You look beautiful." "Thank you. You look good too." We sat in awkward silence for a moment before I forced myself to speak. "Ethan, I need you to be completely honest with me about everything. No more games, no more manipulation. Can you do that?" "Yes, I promise." "Why now? Why are you suddenly interested in me again after 4 years? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that reminded me painfully of Ryan. "Because seeing you with my brother made me realize what I'd lost. Maya, for 4 years, I told myself I was better off without you, that I wasn't ready for something serious, that I needed to focus on my career. But watching you two together, seeing how happy you were jealous. I was devastated. I realized that I'd given away the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'd given it to my brother. But you didn't want me when you had me."
Ethan was quiet for a moment. Maya, I need to tell you something about that last month we were together. Something I've never told anyone. What? I was scared. Terrified, actually. Not of you, but of what I felt for you. I'd never been in love before, real love, the kind that changes you, and I didn't know how to handle it. My heart clenched. You were in love with me? I was so in love with you, it terrified me. Every time you talked about the future, every time you looked at me like I was something special, I panicked. I thought I was too young, too selfish, too screwed up to be what you needed. So you pulled away. I pulled away. I started letting Ryan cover for me more often because being with you was becoming too intense. I couldn't handle how much I loved you. Tears were forming in my eyes. But the way you broke up with me, Ethan, it was so cold, so cruel. Because I thought if I was cruel enough, you'd hate me and it would be easier for both of us to move on. I thought I was doing the right thing. God, you were so stupid. I know, and I've regretted it every day since. I wiped my eyes with the napkin. Ethan, even if I believe that you loved me then, how do I know you're not going to get scared again? How do I know you won't run the first time things get serious? Because I'm not that scared 22-year-old anymore. Maya, I've spent 4 years learning what it feels like to live without you. I've dated other women, I've had other relationships, and none of them have come close to what we had. I know now that what I felt for you wasn't something to run from. It was something to fight for. And you want to fight for it now? I want to fight for you now. I want to prove to you that I'm not the same person who broke your heart. I want to show you what we could have if we both went into it with our eyes wide open. I studied his face, looking for any sign that he was lying or manipulating me. But all I saw was sincerity and regret and hope. What about Ryan? He's your brother. Ethan's expression darkened. Ryan will understand. He knows that you were mine first. I was never yours, Ethan. And I'm not an object that can be passed between you two. You're right. I'm sorry. I just meant, Maya, what Ryan and I did to you was wrong. We both manipulated you in different ways, but at least I'm being honest about what I want now. What do you want? I want you. I want to take you on real dates, not deceptions. I want to introduce you to people as my girlfriend, not my brother's girlfriend. I want to build something real with you, something that isn't based on lies or mistaken identity. And you think we can do that after everything that's happened? I think we owe it to ourselves to try. Maya, I love you. I've loved you for 4 years, even when I was too stupid to admit it. And I think you still love me too. He reached across the table and took my hand, feeling the familiar electricity that had always existed between us. Don't you? I looked down at our joined hands, feeling the electricity that had always existed between us. I don't know. Then let me show you. Give me one chance to prove that we can have what we should have had from the beginning. I pulled my hand away. I can't make any promises. I'm still processing the end of my relationship with Ryan. I'm still trying to figure out what I want. I understand. I'm not asking you to make any decisions tonight. I'm just asking you not to close the door completely. I looked at him, really looked at him, and tried to imagine what it would be like to date him for real. No deception, no games, just Ethan and Maya figuring out if they could build something together. It was terrifying and exciting and completely uncertain. One date. One real date with no expectations and no promises. And if it goes well, maybe we can talk about another one. The smile that spread across Ethan's face was radiant. Thank you, Maya. Thank you for giving me this chance. Don't thank me yet. You haven't proven anything. I will. I promise you, I will.
As I drove home that night, I felt a mixture of excitement and guilt. Excitement about the possibility of finally having the relationship with Ethan that I'd always dreamed of. And guilt about Ryan, sweet, loyal Ryan, who'd loved me completely and lost me to his brother after all. I knew I was taking a huge risk. I knew that Ethan could hurt me again, probably worse than before. But I also knew that I'd never be able to move forward with anyone else until I knew for sure what could have been with him. It was time to find out. 3 days later, I was getting ready for my first official date with Ethan when my phone rang. It was Emma. Maya, are you sitting down? No, why? What's wrong? Turn on Channel 7 News, now. I grabbed the remote with shaking hands and flipped to the local news station. What I saw made my blood run cold. The accident occurred around 3 p.m. this afternoon when the victim's car collided with a semi-truck on I-35. Ryan Morrison, 25, was rushed to Dell Seton Medical Center where he remains in critical condition. The remote fell from my hands. Maya? Maya, are you there? I have to go, I whispered, and hung up. I grabbed my keys and drove to the hospital as fast as I could, my mind racing. Critical condition. Ryan was in critical condition, and the last thing I'd said to him was that we were over. The ICU waiting room was full of people when I arrived. Ryan's parents, his grandmother, several cousins I recognized from the anniversary party. And sitting in the corner, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him, was Ethan. Maya, Linda Morrison stood up when she saw me. Oh, thank God you're here. She pulled me into a hug, and I was too shocked to resist. How is he? I asked. He's in surgery. The doctors said there was significant internal bleeding and possible brain trauma. We won't know more for several hours. I sank into a chair, trying to process this information. What happened? We're not sure, David Morrison said. The police said it looked like he might have been distracted, maybe fell asleep at the wheel. He'd been working a lot of overtime lately, not sleeping much. Not sleeping because he was heartbroken, because I'd broken his heart. Maya, Ethan said quietly, sitting down beside me. I'm so sorry. I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw genuine pain in his eyes. Whatever else Ethan was, he did love his brother. Have you been here long? Since they called, He paused. I was on my way to pick you up for our date when Mom called. Our date. I'd completely forgotten about it. The doctor said he was asking for you, Linda said, sitting on my other side. Before he went into surgery, he kept saying your name. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. Ryan had been asking for me, and I'd been getting ready to go out with his brother. We sat in that waiting room for 6 hours. 6 hours of terrible coffee and uncomfortable plastic chairs, and the constant fear that a doctor would come out and tell us the worst news possible. Finally, Dr. Patterson emerged from the surgical wing, looking exhausted. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison? We all stood up. Ryan is stable. The surgery went well. We were able to repair the internal bleeding, and while there was some swelling in his brain, the preliminary scans looked promising.
The collective sigh of relief was audible. "Can we see him?" Linda asked. "He's still unconscious, but you can see him one at a time. He'll probably be out for several more hours." "Maya should go first," Ethan said quietly. Everyone looked at him in surprise, including me. "He was asking for her," Ethan continued. "She should go first." I followed Dr. Patterson down the hall to Ryan's room, my heart pounding. Nothing could have prepared me for seeing him like that, pale and still, connected to machines, a bandage wrapped around his head. I sat down in the chair beside his bed and took his hand. "Ryan?" I whispered. "I'm here. I'm so sorry." His hand was warm, but limp in mine. I sat there for the allowed 15 minutes, talking to him quietly, telling him about the people waiting to see him, apologizing for everything that had happened between us. "I need you to wake up," I said as my time was ending. "I need you to be okay. Ryan, I'm sorry for being so confused about everything. I'm sorry for hurting you. I'm sorry I wasn't sure enough about loving you." And as I was getting up to leave, I could have sworn I felt his hand squeeze mine slightly. But when I looked at his face, he was still unconscious. Over the next 3 days, I practically lived at the hospital. I called in sick for work and spent every available visiting hour in Ryan's room. His family was grateful for my presence, but I could see the questions in their eyes. If we'd broken up, why was I there? Why was I the one holding vigil while his brother paced the waiting room like a caged animal? On the 3rd day, Ryan finally woke up. "Maya?" His voice was hoarse and weak, but it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. "I'm here," I said, squeezing his hand. "You're in the hospital. You were in an accident, but you're going to be okay." He tried to sit up and winced. "How long?" 3 days. Everyone's been so worried." "Everyone?" "Your family, your friends from work." I paused. "Ethan." Something flickered across his face. "Ethan's here?" "He's been here the whole time. Ryan, he's been beside himself. I think this scared him as much as it scared the rest of us." Ryan was quiet for a moment, processing. "Maya, what are you doing here?" The question I'd been dreading. Where else would I be? I thought we were done. Tears started flowing down my face. "Ryan, when I got the call that you were hurt, nothing else mattered. Not our fight, not our problems, not anything. I just needed you to be okay. But you still don't love me the way I need you to." The honesty in his voice was devastating. Even lying in a hospital bed, barely conscious, he could see through to the truth. "Ryan, I don't know what I feel anymore. I thought I had everything figured out, and then this happened, and now I'm just grateful you're alive." He nodded slowly. "I need to see Ethan." "Are you sure? You should rest." "I need to see him now, please." I went to get Ethan, who'd been wearing a path in the waiting room carpet. "He wants to see you." Ethan's face was full of relief and apprehension. "How is he?" "Weak but alert." "Ethan, be gentle with him." "Of course." I watched Ethan disappear into Ryan's room, then sat down in the waiting room chair I'd come to think of as mine. 20 minutes later, Ethan emerged looking shaken. "What did he say?" Ethan sat down heavily beside me. "He forgave me." "What?" "He said he forgave me for trying to break you two up, for lying about the phone calls, for being a jealous ass. He said he understood why I did it, and he forgave me." "That sounds like Ryan." "Maya, he also said something else. He said that if you decided you wanted to be with me, he wouldn't stand in the way. He said he just wants you to be happy, even if it's not with him. I stared at Ethan in shock. Even after everything, the accident, the heartbreak, the manipulation, Ryan was still putting my happiness above his own. God, I don't deserve him. No, Ethan said quietly. You don't, but neither do I. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Ethan, I said finally, I can't go out with you. Because of the accident? Because of Ryan. Because of what this showed me about him and about myself. Ethan, no, let me finish. Ryan lying in that hospital bed asking for me even after I'd broken his heart, that's the kind of man he is. Generous and forgiving and completely selfless when it comes to the people he loves. And you think I'm not capable of that? I think you're capable of a lot of things, Ethan. You're charming, intelligent, and passionate. But are you capable of loving someone more than you love yourself? Are you capable of putting someone else's happiness above your own? I don't know, and I can't risk my heart again until I'm sure. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. So, what are you saying? I'm saying that I need to figure out what I want without any pressure from either of you. I need to understand my own feelings before I can make any decisions about my future. And Ryan? I looked toward his room, where I could see him talking quietly with his parents. Ryan is a good man who deserves someone who loves him completely and without reservation. I don't know if that's me, but I owe it to both of us to figure it out. And me? You and I have too much history, too much baggage. Maybe in another lifetime, in another situation, we could have been something beautiful. But I think we've hurt each other too much to ever fully trust again. Ethan nodded slowly. I understand. I don't like it, but I understand. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for knowing what you want, or what you don't. He stood up. I'm going to go. Tell Ryan I said goodbye. Where are you going? Back to Dallas. Back to my life. Maya, I meant what I said about loving you. I do, but you're right. I'm not sure I'm capable of loving you the way you deserve to be loved. And until I figure out how to do that, I have no business asking you to take a chance on me. I watched him walk away, this man who'd helped my heart for so long, and felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. Now I just had to figure out what to do about the man lying in the hospital room behind me. Ryan stayed in the hospital for another week. During that time, I spent every day with him, not as his girlfriend or fiance, but as someone who cared deeply about his recovery. We talked about everything and nothing. We watched terrible daytime TV. I helped him with the crossword puzzle when his head was feeling clear enough, but we didn't talk about us. Ryan, can I tell you something? Always. When I got the call that you'd been in an accident, I felt like my world was ending. Not because I was losing my ex-boyfriend, but because I was losing you, Ryan Morrison, the man who learned my grandmother's cookie recipe and brought me sunflowers and listened to all my fears about not being good enough. He was quiet, waiting for me to continue. I realized that somewhere along the way, I did fall in love with you. Really fall in love with you. Not because you looked like Ethan or because you represented the best parts of him, but because of who you are. But I also realized that I'd been so focused on trying to figure out if my feelings were real that I'd never just let myself feel them. I'd been analyzing and questioning and doubting instead of just being present with you. So what are you saying? I took a deep breath. I'm saying that I love you, Ryan Morrison. I love your kindness and your gentleness and the way you make me laugh. I love that you see the best in everyone, even people who don't deserve it. I love that you forgave your brother even after everything he did. I love that you were willing to let me go because you thought it would make me happy. Tears were forming in his eyes. Maya, I love you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to be sure about it. I'm sorry I hurt you by being confused about my own feelings. What about Ethan? What about him? Ryan, Ethan is my past, a complicated, messy part of my past that I needed to resolve. But you're my present. And if you'll let me, I'd like you to be my future too.
He was quiet for such a long time that I started to worry I'd waited too long, that I'd lost my chance. Ryan, I need you to be absolutely sure, he said finally. Maya, I can't go through losing you again. If you're going to choose me, you have to be completely, 100% sure that you want to be with me. Not because I'm safe, not because I'm available, but because you genuinely can't imagine your life without me. I looked at this man, bandaged and pale, but still so beautiful to me, and felt something click into place in my chest. Ryan, I can't imagine my life without you. Not because you're Ethan's twin, not because you represent some idealized version of someone else, but because you're you. You're the man who makes me coffee in the morning and leaves little notes in my textbooks and holds me when I have nightmares about losing the people I love. I reached over and took his hand. You asked me once if I would have fallen in love with you if you looked completely different. The answer is yes, because what I love about you has nothing to do with your face and everything to do with your heart. Are you sure? I'm sure. Ryan, I love you. I choose you. I want to marry you and build a life with you and grow old with you, if you'll still have me. He was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. Maya, I've loved you since the first moment I saw you across that campus. I've loved you through all of this confusion and pain and uncertainty. Of course, I'll still have you. I'll always choose you. I leaned over and kissed him softly, tasting the salt of both our tears. So, what happens now? I whispered against his lips. Now we start over. For real this time. No lies, no deception, no confusion about who we are or why we're together. Just Ryan and Maya, figuring it out as we go. I'd like that. He smiled, that beautiful, genuine smile that was nothing like Ethan's, but was somehow so much better. Maya? Yeah? Will you marry me again? I laughed through my tears. Are you proposing to me from a hospital bed? I don't have a ring, and I'm wearing a hospital gown, and I probably smell like antiseptic. But yes, I'm proposing to you from a hospital bed, because I don't want to wait another second to start our real life together. Then yes, I'll marry you. Again.
Maya, Ryan said, holding my hands as we stood under an arch of sunflowers in October 2025. You've taught me that love isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about choosing each other every day, even when things are complicated or scary or uncertain. You've taught me that I'm worthy of being chosen, not as someone's second choice or backup plan, but as myself. I promise to love you as Ryan Morrison for the rest of my life. Ryan, I said, my voice shaking with emotion,
You've taught me that real love isn't about the fantasy or the idea of someone, but about seeing who they really are and choosing to build something together. You've shown me what it means to be loved unconditionally, and you've helped me learn to trust my own heart. I promise to love you completely, without reservation, for all the days of my life. When the minister pronounced us husband and wife, I felt a sense of peace and rightness that I'd never experienced before. This was real. This was right. This was us. Ethan didn't come to the wedding. He sent a card, a simple congratulations, with a note that said, "Be happy. You both deserve it." He'd moved to Seattle 8 months earlier for a new job. And while Ryan still talked to him occasionally, the dynamic between the brothers had fundamentally shifted. Ethan was finally learning to build his own life instead of competing for Ryan's. As for me, I finished my therapy license and opened a small practice specializing in family counseling and relationship trauma. My own experience with deception and manipulation has made me uniquely qualified to help others navigate similar situations. Ryan started his renewable energy company and is slowly building something beautiful and sustainable, much like our marriage. We still live in Austin, in a little house with a big backyard and a garden full of sunflowers. We have a dog named Oscar who thinks he's a lapdog despite weighing 70 pounds. We talk about having kids someday, but for now, we're content being just us. Sometimes people ask me if I ever wonder, what if, about Ethan? The answer is no. What Ethan and I had was based on fantasy and projection and the intensity of first love. What Ryan and I have is based on reality and choice and the deep contentment of being known and accepted completely. I learned that love isn't about finding someone who fits your ideal. It's about finding someone who helps you become the best version of yourself, someone who sees all your flaws and loves you anyway, someone who chooses you every single day, not because you're perfect, but because you're perfect for each other. Ryan is my perfect, not because he looks like someone else or represents some idealized version of love, but because he's kind and genuine and completely himself with me. Because he makes me laugh and holds me when I cry and believes in my dreams even when I don't believe in them myself. Because when I look at him, I don't see Ethan's twin or a second choice or a consolation prize. I see my husband, my best friend, my future, the man who was brave enough to pretend to be someone else to spend time with me and then brave enough to show me who he really was. Some stories don't have neat, tidy endings. Some love stories are messy and complicated and full of mistakes and second chances. But sometimes, if you're very lucky, you find someone who makes all the confusion and heartbreak worth it. Sometimes, you marry exactly the right twin. And sometimes, that's the beginning of the most beautiful love story of all.
And so, this story comes to an end, but the pain it carries is real and lasting. Behind his mask, there may be charm, but also lies, manipulation, and silence. If you've experienced something similar, please don't hesitate to share it in the comments below or send it to us directly. Your story matters, your truth matters, and your voice might be the one that saves someone else from falling into the same trap. Together, we break the silence. Together, we unmask the lies. And together, we rise stronger. Thank you for listening. Share this story. Save a sister. End the fetishization.